Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you. I want to say thank you for having me, and today we're going to have a good amount of fun. So today I just want to give a brief summary of what we're going to be doing today. And today we're going to be going over the 2GIG GC2e panel, and we'll talk about its capabilities. With this being so short on time, what I'm going to ask is we're going to have everybody kind of muted. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. I'll then answer all the questions at the end. Please keep in mind, we do have a short amount of time, so we'll be going pretty quick here. So my name is Jerome. I've been with NORTEK for about 10 years now. I've also been out in the field, so I do answer field questions as well. So we'll be going through a few things today. So first things first, let me see if my PowerPoint's working. We're going to go through quite a bit of information. So first things first, though, is just a product overview. We're going to go over who we are as a company first. So our company is NORTEK Security and Control. That company owns quite a few of other companies, but we consider them brands now. So the first one we're going to talk about is our Alon side of things. It's our smart home, high-end smart home settings. We also have Numera, which is our personal emergency devices. We have 2GIG, which is our security side of things. We'll be talking about that today. We also have Intellivision, which is our facial recognition, AI technology that does object recognition, stuff like that. We also have access control as well, which does gates, garage doors, and of course, building access. So now just a brief overview of how our panel works and what it does. So first things first, is this our 2GIG panel. We use 345 megahertz sensors to communicate to our panel for security purposes. We also use 900 megahertz for our high-end devices, like our secondary touchscreens, our image sensors, and Go bridges. We also have Z-Wave devices, which is for smart home security. So you can do smart home control for your light bulbs, garage door controllers, thermostats. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. From there, all of our devices will communicate through our panel to a cell tower. From there to the backend service provider. A majority of the time, that's alarm.com, but we do have different backends. We have SecureNet, Uplink, and Telguard. We also allow you to use the Go bridge, which is an IP converter, which will convert the internet communication to 900 and then communicate that to our panel. So you can do a fast communication through your broadband network to them. You do have to have both of them for functionality, but we do have true two-way communication. What that means is both signals from our panel are going to go through the internet and then through the cell as well. So if one goes down, they will both one of them will send the signal sooner. So from alarm.com or SecureNet, from your RSP, it'll go to the backend provider or the end user, which will get notifications, video clips, different things like that. And then it'll go to you guys out in the field, telling you if, let's just say, inactivity reports. So if you know they're not using it, different things like that. And then, of course, to your central station provider, making sure they get the notice of break-in or something like that. With that being said, we do have a newer version of the panel. It's called the E-Series panel. That panel allows you to use encrypted sensors now. It gives you the ability to actually use encrypted sensors so that the hacking out there is a lot harder. I wouldn't ever say it's hack proof, but it's definitely harder for them to get that information from that sensor. With that being said, it gives you better security, though you do lose the ability to use the Go bridge, secondary keypads, and the image sensor, which is the motion detector with the camera built in. You don't actually lose that functionality. I'll talk more about that in just a little bit, but you do lose like encryption side of things. So with our new encryption, we give you enhanced security, encrypted sensors, and exceptional performance. It gives you the ability to be fully encrypted from ground to root. So the big difference is if you look on the outside of it, you can notice that we changed the design of the look. We increased the screen size, gave it a better touchscreen from being a pressure sensitive touchscreen to a capacitive touchscreen. So we did a lot of functional differences and internal differences as well. So talk about the new design, bigger touchscreen, new encrypted sensors, and then we also improved the Z-Wave as well. So we went from regular Z-Wave to Z-Wave Plus. This also includes S2 security, which is a higher security level than standard Z-Wave for different sensors out there. Then we also made the packaging smaller. We made it smaller because we wanted to be able to allow you to stack more on your shelves or in your vans. So it made it easier for you to carry more product with you. So what can the GC2 and GC2e do? The GC2e can do 60 wireless zones, 8 key fobs, 4 secondary keypads, 64 programmable user codes, 2-way voice over cell, that means 2-way communication directly on the panel, 232 Z-Wave devices, and then USB updates through a updater tool or through the over-the-air updates through alarm.com or SecureNet. Next, some of the difference between the older product and the newer product. We can pretty much ignore the GC2 unless you're working on a takeover. But the newer one, this is really what you're going to be looking at here. So you have one hardwired panel sensor on the inside of this panel. You have no normally open collector outputs. You have Z-Wave Plus. There's no POTS module for this anymore. We realized the POTS module market has dropped off drastically. So there's no option for that anymore. We do encryption, and we have different firmware versions than the older panel does because of new features with the GC2e. And we have a slew of sensors. I'm not going to bore you to death by going through every single one and all their features. I'll go through a majority of them and talk about some of the key differences from us in a lot of the market. So first things first is we have standard contacts come with every single one of our kits. And the first one you'll talk about is the thin door window contact. That's a standard contact. It comes in the E series and non-E series. With the GC2e, it does support a normally open connection, which means it's going to be in a normally open standardly. And with that being said, it actually has 2 zones in it. One is the magnetic zone on the outside, and the other one is a hardwired zone on the inside. And this will allow you to use 2 different zones in our programming. So for biparting windows or different things like that, instead of buying 2 contacts, you can buy 1 and wired contact and wire it into the actual sensor itself so that you have 2 different contacts. And we have micro sensors. We also have recessed door contacts. With that being said, the biggest question I get is what is our range? On the box, it'll say 350 feet. In actuality, in a house with stick and drywall, you'll get about 100 to 150 feet standardly in a home. The battery life is about 3 to 5 years. 3 years on the front door you always use. 5 years on the back door no one ever touches. So just keep that in mind. 100 to 150 feet, 3 to 5 years. We also have a tilt sensor. We have a motion detector, or passive IR motion detector. This is the one that will standardly come in the kit if you buy the kit. Then we have a glass break detector as well. We have a carbon monoxide detector. Smoke detectors, we have 2 of them. This Smoke 3 is actually the one that we're phasing out and actually replacing the Smoke 8 out in the market. And the Smoke 8 is a newer generation, and it's designed to meet the UL 2020 rules for smoke detectors. And we added a little extra bit in there that is designed to recognize the difference between smoke from cooking and then smoke from synthetic materials. So like your house is on fire. And then on top of that, these sensors have three things built into them. One's a smoke, one's a heat detector, and one's a freeze detector. With that being said, I can also trigger my detectors to tell my panel to turn specific things off or on. One of the big things is smoke travels around the house through the AC unit or the heater unit. The way we can fix that is when the thermostat or the smoke detectors go off, it tells the thermostat to turn off. We can also turn lights on and unlock front doors so that we can easily get out of the house in a safe and quick way. Then we also have two other life safety sensors. One is a smoke ring, and the smoke ring is designed to go under 110 smoke detectors. So you move them from the wall and you clip this into the 110 lines for that smoke detector, and it will trigger as if it's another smoke in line with those smoke detectors. If you don't want to hardwire anything, that's perfectly fine. The firefighter is a really good option, and it's a listening device. It is designed to listen for the audible sound from your smoke detectors. Please keep in mind that this device is designed to listen for that high-pitched sound. So if you get newer smoke detectors that don't make that high-pitched sound, that just say fire, 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 this device probably won't work. So you want to make sure you test to make sure that it is fully functional before leaving that house. Next, we have panic buttons. We have fall detector pendants. These are designed to be used in a home, not mobile, so they're definitely want to be used in a house. With that being said, we also have some notification sensors. These sensors are designed to give you notifications. They're not security sensors. They're not alarm sensors. They're not designed to set off the alarm. So we have a stove and grill guard that monitors if your stove has been left on. We have a gun motion detector that's designed to lock the trigger of the gun. So it's a trigger lock, and it's a motion detector to determine if the gun has moved. It'll send you a text message saying that your gun has moved. We also have outdoor sensors, so you can monitor your pool gates or your main gates into the house, different things like that. And the gap between the actual sensor and the magnet is about 2 inches. So you get a pretty big gap there. Next, we have flood temp sensors. We have water leak detectors. We have wireless doorbells. The flood temp sensor is designed to actually monitor the water that's kind of been sat underneath something, so you can put probes down there. The water leak detector is designed to actually detect if water has fallen on the device directly, so it goes underneath the P-trap and sinks. But it also has terminals on the bottom of it, so that if it sits in water, it'll also be able to notify you as well. Wireless doorbells. That wireless doorbell isn't just a wireless doorbell. It can be pretty much programmed to do whatever I want it to. It's just a wireless button. So you can trigger your lights with it. You can do all kinds of things with that wireless doorbell. We have secondary keypads. We've got key fobs, wireless repeaters that will just repeat the range. With that being said, I didn't state this yet, but I will now. The Honeywell 5800 series works perfectly fine with our panel straight out of the box. There's nothing you have to buy. There's no extra parts. It just learns into our panel and programs just like any other sensor would. So if you're taking over a Honeywell panel currently, you can take it over with our panel with no problems. And then we also have takeover modules. These are designed to take over 8 hardwired zones and make them wireless. You could also do the kit, which is designed to actually take out the entire enclosure that's currently there. And you replace it with our plastic enclosure with the kit and a separate power supply. And you could also have 3 in the enclosure at one time. Currently, this phase 2 and 3, we actually already have all of them out, so you actually don't have to worry about any of the phases here. All of our E-Series sensors are currently out in the market. The one thing I do want to state is the 900 megahertz devices, which is the broadband communicator, image sensor, and the wireless keypad. You need a separate receiver for those. That's a 900 transceiver. It's a separate part that you need to make sure you get if you're using any one of these. The biggest thing to keep in mind is you're going to get about 100 to 75 feet out of it. So you're not going to get a huge amount of distance, but you will get quite a bit. And the battery life on that is about a year to 2 years. On average, you'll get about a year out of the batteries on the image sensor because that's the only one that uses batteries. But like I said earlier, the GC2e is a little bit separate, a little bit unique. If I change it over and I give you a 900 megahertz module and you install it in your GC2e, you'll be able to use the 900 megahertz devices, but you will lose the ability to use encrypted devices. You still have the standard non-encrypted devices, but you won't be able to use the new E-series encrypted sensors. We are working on a new 900 megahertz receiver, but as of right now, it's not out there. So I just want to make sure you guys are all aware, new E-series won't work with the 900 megahertz devices. Then we also have outlets, switches, plug-in modules, dimmable LEDs, thermostats, garage door controllers, Z-Wave door locks, strobe sirens. Just a couple of things to keep in mind here. With plug-in modules, dimmer modules are dim the voltage of the actual outlet. So you want to make sure you don't put any appliances on those guys, and make sure your customer knows not to put appliances on them either. They could be pretty bad for electronics if you dim them. The next thing is our garage door controller is an amazing product, but it's not for every single operator. Some operators have very proprietary designs, so they only work with certain back ends. So our units are designed to work with majority of the operators out there. The easiest way to tell is if you can short the door station and common and the operator opens, our unit will work with that. If it doesn't work that way and they have a proprietary head unit, then it absolutely won't. They don't want you to waste your time trying to get it to work. Next is we have a bunch of radios. The easiest way to look at it is we have Verizon, AT&T for both SecureNet and Alarm.com. They both work perfectly fine. You can choose to use them. They both are 4G now as well. And we also have Canadian radios as well. So if you have Thales or Bell options out there. We have kits, desktop mounts, so you can mount them on desktops. It's a pretty good scenario right now with the whole lockdown. You can actually mount your keypads on desks instead of having to mount on the wall, so you're in and out a little bit quicker than normal. We have AC2 plugs, which are actual barrel connectors, so you don't actually have live wire that gets pulled out. And then we have Updater tool. This is the Updater tool that allows you to update the GC2 to the latest firmware, or GC2e to the latest firmware, without having to carry a laptop with you or waiting for alarm.com to download those updates. Next, we're going to be talking about what's inside the unit, the wiring side of things, and then some Takeover Module specific stuff. So to open the new GC2e, what you can do is you're going to pop the top on the very top of it. There's going to be screw terminals up there. You just press down and it removes it. And then you will undo the two screws in the middle here. And you'll press down on these two tabs. That'll bring the front faceplate out, which all of the guts are in the front of it. You will then probably want to mount the back plate with the level here. And then you can actually just use the third hand to hold the panel on the wall. We also have a diagram showing you how to wire everything up on the panel. It's pretty straightforward, but there's a wiring diagram here anyways. And then we allow you to throw the antenna back through the hole in the wall. With this being said, the biggest thing you want to make sure is that when you're taking the panel off later, that you don't pull this antenna and get it caught on the edge here. If it gets caught on the edge, it'll actually break this little connection here. So you want to make sure you're very cautious of not pulling too hard and jerking it and breaking the pin on the actual cell module. That's our cell card. There's a cell card right there. That's the cell card that doesn't come installed, so you have to make sure you install it separately. We have the 24-hour backup battery, 85 decibel siren, wall tamper, 345 megahertz module. That one will be replaced with the 900 if you plan on using the secondary keypad or the GE translator option if you wanted to take over GE sensors. Then we also have a terminal block here. With that terminal block, we will actually show you how everything wires up. It's pretty straightforward. You have hardwired zones on the hardwired zone up top. You have the bell output below that. You have a common wire. You have the negative 14 volts DC. Then you have the positive 14 volts DC. The most common wires you're going to use is the positive negative for the transformer. Then you have the common. You'll have the positive negative for the bell as well. Just keep in mind that the bell output on it is actually 120 milliamps, so it's not going to power everything to the maximum. It'll power very few things. So you want to use an electronics power supply if you're going to use it for later on. Recommended wiring is 18 gauge for a running wire. Positive to positive when wiring things up. So make sure that you're using the correct wire for when powering it up. It is DC powered, so if you don't power it correctly, it won't power on. And then with that being said, if you're powering a TS1, make sure you use their own power supplies. They will come with 2 power supplies to power each one. You just don't want to have any issues with that in the future. The Takeover module takes over 8 hardwired zones, allows you to take them over and make them your own. You'll run ground to ground, 12 volts to 12 volts, and then 1 through 8 to 1 through 8 for the low wires. And this is a pretty straightforward look. You take all of the wires, power wires off, then you take the high wires, run them over to the Takeover module, then you run power and ground over to the auxiliary power. Then you want to make sure the biggest part that you have to use for this is the battery needs to go to the Takeover module first, then backup battery to the main panel, then return the main AC. If you don't want to use the existing equipment, that's perfectly fine. We can do the exact same thing without the existing equipment there. All we're going to do is remove everything, remove the enclosure, and replace it with our enclosure with the kit. Then you're going to run the high wires to the 1 through 8, and then the low wires are going to go together and then go to the ground terminal. Then it's the same idea. The motion detector's power and the main power for this will go to the main power of the board. Then we do the backup power the same way. Takeover module backup power first, then backup power for the secondary power supply or the main power supply, then main AC goes in here. All 5800 series products work. The only ones that may be an issue are key fobs with their panic buttons. Next, we're going to go into some programming here. We're going to go pretty quick into here. All the programming for both panels is identical. There's a couple of extra questions, but they're pretty much straightforward, direct in most of the times. System configuration is pretty straightforward. Programming zones, keypads, stuff like that. Then we have system restore, allows you to default it. Radio status, check the status of your radio. Walk test allows you to test to make sure your sensors are working. Disable sounder allows you to disable your sounder while doing your system test. So here's the base look of the panel. This is where you'll notice if your system's ready to arm or your notifications, it'll turn yellow if you have a trouble condition. Here's where your security settings are. Here's where all your Z-Wave access is and your end user access. The power notifications, see if you're on battery backup or your main AC. Then we have arm sounds, different things like that. The display brightness, if you want to turn the display off immediately. And then we have the 2GIG icon at the bottom here. This is where you'll actually click the button to get the installer program. So if we click on that, you'll type in your code. By default, it's 1561 to get into programming. Once you're in programming, there's a few options here. This is your installer toolbox. This is where all of your programming is done in the system. There's a few extra tabs here, but we'll cover the majority of them. One is restore defaults. This is where you can default the entire panel. Keep in mind that this is wipe everything out of the panel, all the zones, and the console programming as well. You can choose between the two, but normally if you're defaulting, you'll default the whole thing. And this is our radio status. This will tell you the status of your radio. It tells you it's a 0 out of 31 option here. The number you're looking for is 12 or higher. This is what we recommend for a strong signal to the central station. 12 out of 31. Next is a walk test. This walk test tells you the strength of your the sensors, allows you to test to make sure all your sensors are coming through. Please keep in mind this does not send a signal to your central station. So you want to make sure that when you do your central station test, you want to test all of your sensors and making sure that they get through the central station with the correct information. Disable sounder will disable your sounder for 30 minutes. Please keep in mind when you hit that OK button, it will sound. It will not be full volume, but it will still make a sound so that you know that your sounder has been disabled. And this is where you can actually get access to images from the image sensor, allow you to text images to you, and they won't count on to your customer's side of pictures that month. Last but not least, of course, is your system configuration. This is where you're going to spend 99% of your programming. This is where you go in and you program all of your sensors, all your zones. And the way our system works is we ask you questions and sub-questions. So we're asking a main question, and then we'll get into the sub-questions about that. So first things first is we have 4 main questions. And the first main question is wireless zones. The second main question is wired zones. Third main question is key fobs. And then fourth main question is keypads. Questions 5 through 97 are system settings. And that's where I do entry delays, exit delays, all of that fun stuff is at the end there. And each one of them has their own sub-questions. And they're very similar across the board until you get to 5 through 97, where it's just drastically, every single question has their own options for it. So first things first, to navigate through different questions, all you're going to do is you're going to hit the go to button and then type in the 2-digit number of the question you're looking for. If you accidentally, you're like me and you have what I call fat finger syndrome, I always hit buttons on accident, you can hit the cancel button here. It'll bring you right back to where you were before. So next is to navigate through. The first thing you need to know is this white box right here is actually your answer box. This is where you're going to want your answer to be. So you want to make sure you put your answer here and you'll be good to go. So to get the correct answer here, you're going to hit the right or left button here to go through all the options. You can also type it in, but the left and right arrow allow you to cycle through all the options you have. Then from there, we're going to go through all of our sub-questions. There's quite a bit of sub-questions, so I'm not going to bore you to death with going over them twice. So all you're going to do is once you have the right answer in the white box, all you're going to do is you're going to press down or up. Up lets you go to the previous question. Down lets you go to the next sub-question. So like this one in the beginning, the first one we're going to ask you in question 1 with area one is what's the sensor number you're working with. If we're adding in a front door sensor, we're going to want to probably leave it at 01. If we're not, then we're just going to hit the right button until we see the number we're looking for. Once we're done programming that, we're going to press down. And that's pretty much the entire programming, right or left and down. The next one is going to ask you the sensor type. And this one is just asking you what type of sensors is going to be interior follower, entry exit, 24-hour fire, all of those options. Once you have the right answer there, you just press down. You can hit right or left till you find it. Here's a list of our standard types. The only one that's a little bit unique is a 23 no response type. And all it says is, I want to get a notification, but I don't want the alarm to go off. So if I'm doing like a gun safe, liquor cabinet, something like that where my kids might get into it, but I don't want to call the police because they had a drink, I just want to get a text message, then I will just put a 23 no response type there. Next is equipment code. Equipment code is just asking you what type of a sensor you're working with. So you can cycle through all these options and choose the correct sensor. The biggest thing to keep in mind here is our new sensors need to be made sure are chosen with the E series prompt. So if you look, the new E series sensors actually has an E series list in the front, and then it says 2GIG Thunder window contact. If you don't put that there, you will have a sensor that will learn into the panel, but will not actually function when you're out of programming. And you can test this by opening and closing doors. If they don't trigger, that tells you that you're having issues with that sensor because of programming. So you want to make sure you choose the correct equipment code here because of the encryption. Then just press down. The next option on the GC2e is the normally open option. The main reason we put this in here is because people like to use hardwired sensors for the panic button. So you can hardwire a panic button to this sensor and it will allow you to do normally open options now. If you don't use that or you don't know what it is, don't worry about it. You can actually just ignore it unless it ever comes up. Then you can call our tech support and we can explain how to use it, how to wire it up, or use it as a normally open option there. Then just press down. The next is serial number. We've got a couple ways to get the serial number off this device. The first things first is you can just actually grab the serial number off the back of the sensor. It comes right there. It's a TXID number is the serial number. You can grab it. You can type it in here. If you're a little bit like me, I like to make it a little bit easier myself. I can just hit Shift and then Learn, and it'll prompt you right here, and it's telling you that you can learn your sensors in. All you do is you open and close them at that point, and they'll learn in. And they'll give you a prompt of what's going on. If you're learning in Honeywell sensors, it'll say it's a Honeywell sensor right there. Our sensors will come up with secure wireless, but you'll be able to tell which sensors are learning in right here, and you'll be able to see ID number. Keep in mind that you can have multiple sensors trigger. The only one that gets learned in is the one that's actually showing up here on this screen. So you just press OK here, and it learns that sensor in. Then you can verify that number with your sensor ID number, and if it matches, you're good to go. If it doesn't match, then you want to make sure you learn it back in again. The next is equipment age. Equipment age actually doesn't affect anything on the panel. What it does do is allows us to, in the back end, say, if you're working with alarm.com, you can pull a report saying if this sensor, how many new sensors are on that site or how many old sensors, or you can look at it and say, hey, that sensor that broke, we didn't install it, that was previously installed by somebody else's system. You'll have to pay for a replacement. Different things like that. If you don't do that and you cover all the system, even if it's all existing, that's perfectly fine. You can ignore this question, just hit the next area. Next is loop number. Loop number is a little bit unique. If you worked with the Honeywell panels, you'll kind of have this idea of what loop numbers are. If you haven't, then this is a little bit unique. What this is inside of each of our sensors, we have options for different connection points for sensors. So our thin door window contact has two loops. The first loop is actually a hardwired connection on the inside of the panel. Our second loop is actually a magnetic contact on the outside. So it's the one used that's standardly used. So you want to make sure you choose the correct loop for that sensor. So just keep in mind, there are multiple options on most sensors. So just keep an eye out for that. So we're using the thin door window contact for this one. So we want to make sure it's 2. Here's a list of pretty much all of our contacts with their loop options. Honeywell has their own loop options there. Just choose the correct loop number that it says on their documents and you'll be fine. Next, dialer delay. Dialer delay is a little bit unique in the aspect of how it functions. So what dialer delay does is it allows you to actually stop the alarm from going off immediately when the alarm is set. And what that means by that is when you enable it, when you open your front door, the entry delay will go off and it gives you a 45-second timer to actually go in and disarm your alarm. If your alarm goes off though and you haven't disarmed it, then dialer delay kicks in and that gives you an extra 30 seconds to disarm your alarm before the police are called. You can always disable that. It's an option that you can use, but by default, it's enabled so that we can prevent false alarms more often than not. Voice descriptor, we have an option here. To add a word to our voice descriptor, you're just going to hit insert, and then our words are designed on a 3-digit number system. So to insert front, it's 098, and then you hit insert again, and you type in the door, and that's 058. If you're used to the older style keypads, this is very much how they're designed. We do have a full quick guide that gives you all the words and all the numbers that you can have on hand. You could also go to 2GIG.com and then click on become a dealer, and then all you're gonna do is register your company information there, and you can get the programming manual that I was talking about that's specifically designed by field techs and designed to make it easier for you. The whole vocab's in there in alphabetical order with all the digits you need to know there. Once you're done there, you just press down. Next is reports. This one a lot of people think is for like sensors I don't want to report to central station. What this actually does is this stops any reports out of the panel from this sensor. This means it doesn't go to alarm.com or your central station. Most of the time it's like I got a liquor cabinet or I've got a gun safe I want to get notifications about, but I don't want the cops being called. That's a 23 no response type. The reports we still want to enable so we can get those sensors information out to alarm.com. So you can disable it or enable it right here, then you just press down. Then supervised. There's 2 sensors I would always recommend turning off supervision, and that is our panic pendant and our fall detector pendant. The reason for that is because both those sensors can walk out of the house, and if they're gone for too long, they cause a trouble condition on the panel. And if it does that when the alarm is armed, then that trouble condition will set off the alarm. And that's the same for everybody's panel. So you just want to keep that in mind. Those 2 sensors can be leave and never come back, or leave and get lost or broken, and you'll have issues with that. So you want to turn the supervision off on those. You still get low batteries. You still get all the same stuff you normally would on them. You just don't have the trouble conditions on there. Then just press down. Then you get the chime. You have 13 options here. You can't hear them, but you can just choose one. Be good to go. I normally do voice only, and most customers are happy with that. If they're not, we actually have YouTube videos showing the customer how to actually change their voice chimes on their own. So you don't have to roll a truck out there to do that. You can just actually give it to them and do all that fun stuff, and they can change their voice chimes by themselves and actually hear all of them. Then just press down. And that's the programming for the zone. The first couple times will be a little bit confusing thinking about it, trying to figure out each one. Once you get it down, it'll be pretty quick. Just press down, right or left, down, right or left, down, right or left. Learn the sensor in, down, right or left. Pretty quickly there. In there. Once you're in this programming summary screen, you can actually cycle through all the zones you've programmed right here. You could edit the current one you're looking at if you notice you made a mistake. You can edit the next one, which will allow you to go to the next zone and actually program the next zone. And then skip allows you to skip to the next section or question 2, which is hardwired zones. Programming takeover modules is a little bit unique. The reason I say that is because the takeover module actually has one serial number, and that serial number is right there. And that serial number ends with the 1. All you're going to do is for each sequential zone on this takeover module, you're going to change the last number to the number that's printed on that zone. So it says 1 here, so you're going to change that to a 1, which is already 1, and then 2 to a 2, 3 to a 3, 4 to a 4, 5 to 5, and that's the serial number for it. So the last number is always the zone number that's hardwired into it. So you'll have 8 different hardwired zones there. Then they're programmed just like every other sensor would be on our system. So you can use that there. Then we have hardwired zones. They're programmed just like wireless zones. The only thing different is we don't ask for a serial number because it doesn't actually need one because it's a hardwired zone. Then wireless zone are key fobs. Key fobs programmed almost identical. We just have a little bit different questions here, like do the emergency key work? Can it disarm? Different options like that. Then we've got secondary keypads. We've got 2 of them. We've got the Pad 1 and the SP1. The Pad 1 is very much a arm and disarm station, and the TS1 is very much the full secondary keypad that can pretty much do everything except for two-way voice. When programming it, there's a few things you want to make sure you look for. The TS1 is going to pair in with the main panel. When you're doing this, if you hit OK here and it doesn't pair, there's a couple options. Either we don't have the 900 transceiver in there, or the firmware version is different on one of the 2 panels, which is the main GC2 panel or the SP1 aren't the same. That will cause an issue. And that will stop you from being able to connect to each other. Couple next things here, programming questions. There's quite a few of them. I'm not going to try to bore you with going through every single one of them here. But the majority of these you don't need to touch. There are very few options that you actually really change here, which is entry exit delay. And then of course you want to make sure you change the installer code, which is question 43. But with that being said, if you were working with alarm.com, I don't know if any of the other backends allow you to do this, but I know alarm.com does. And it's actually a template. You can actually, from alarm.com, set a template that will automatically download to the panel when you program it on their side of things, and it will answer questions 5 through 97 automatically without you having to touch a thing. I recommend you set up a template so it'll do this automatically, so you don't have to worry about it. It will just automatically set it up for you. If you don't want to do that, that's perfectly fine. You can just hit go to 05. It'll bring you to this programming side of things. Then you just answer the questions. This is like entry Entry exit delay in seconds, you can choose from 45 seconds to a minute and a half. Well, you just type it in there, then you press down. When you press down, it'll bring you to the next one, which is question 6, and it's the same thing. Entry exit delay 1 in seconds. Same thing, you just press down again, and you're going through all the options here. If you don't want to hit down every single time, you just hit go to and then type in the question number you want. And then go 43, which brings you to the programming installer code, which I recommend you change. Right there. And then the leave programming, all you're going to do is you're going to hit end. And then you want to make sure that the save changes box is checked. It should always be checked, but there's always that one case where it isn't. And then you just hit save. The system will reboot when done programming. If it gives you an error here that's telling you that, hey, serial number 1 and serial number 7 are the same, that means you accidentally learned the same serial number into both zones. So you're having issues, you need to fix that. But if not, you'll be good to go. Joe, it does look like a lot of programming. I do agree there. But once you get it down, it's actually pretty quick to actually go through that programming. And most of them you won't actually change because they'll be just the way they were. Like, is this a new zone or existing? It'll go pretty quick straight down there. Next, I'll go through a few of these real quick. For the 5800 series product, you can use our repeaters. In that size of a house, I would recommend 2, 1 on each side of the house and with the panel in the middle. For a 4,000 square foot house, the number of repeaters. We don't have a software that lets you do like the zone programming, but all the end programming you can use. The power supply will mount on an outlet, but you can mount the actual repeater higher up in the air, around 8 feet, which is recommended in most cases. We are recording this so you can review it, and we have the recording link there. Perfect. Alrighty, we're gonna jump back on in. I think I got most of the questions there. So with that being said, we talked about sirens. What I recommend, if you're using any kind of siren on our system that's not as tiny piezo, in most cases, you're gonna want to use an electronics power supply to power a siren. So I recommend you use an electronics power supply. What you'll do is you'll wire from our bell output to the electronics power supply, which will then power the sounders from there on out. And all we're using our panel for is a trigger to trigger the power supply to kick over the sounders. If we have more questions about that at the end, we will. I just want to make sure we're good on the questions till then. So next, we'll go through the customer toolbox side of things, adding and deleting customers, user codes, and things like that. So you click security, then menu, then toolbox, and you'll type in your customer code here. By default, the customer code's 1111, but you can also use the installer code here, 1561, to get in as well. Here's where you'll do all the user management. This is where you add codes, delete codes, change the brightness and volume, change the chime options. In that chime option, you actually hear all the audible chimes from the panel, system test, bypass sensors, hit the right arrow. You'll go to brighten, backlight timeout, clean screen. You can also recalibrate the touchscreen. If you're using a GC2e, there's no recalibrating it because it is now capacitive touch. This doesn't require calibration. We also have the version here. This is where you get the version number of the panel. And it'll be just cycling through, telling you the version number of that panel. And we'll press back. And then, of course, you go forward one more, and this is where you do your telephone test or cell test. The telephone test won't be there if you're using GC2e, but the cell test will. And then this is a long way to get to the installer toolbox if you're using it. Next, we're going to be going through the Z-Wave side of things. I'm going to go pretty quick because I think most people understand the Z-Wave side of things. It's a 908 frequency. It's a mesh network, two-way communicating devices that allow you to communicate the easiest way through the house without having to do hardwired systems. We aren't the only company. There's over 200 different companies out there making vast amounts of product. I think one of the coolest ones now is actually a Z-Wave shutoff valve that allows you to shut off the water in a home using Z-Wave. So if you have leak detectors, different things like that, you can actually shut off the water in the house. It doesn't actually require plumbers to install it if you have a correct valve on it. There's two types of Z-Wave. There's Z-Wave and then Z-Wave Plus. The main difference between Z-Wave and Z-Wave Plus is the range. In regular Z-Wave, you're going to get about 25 to 30 feet. With Z-Wave Plus, you're going to get about 50 to 70 feet from device to device. Z-Wave Plus also offers huge upgrades to battery life, noise reduction, improved self-healing, and they, of course, backwards compatibility. So you can use existing Z-Wave stuff with the new Z-Wave Plus. You just don't get the range difference. So just to show you the difference in range, 25 to 30 feet with a 50 to 70 feet difference there. And then how does Z-Wave function, right? So we have a lock downstairs. It's definitely out of range for my panel. So what I can do is plug in any AC powered device, so non-battery powered device. Our plug-in modules called lamp or appliance modules, all of them are repeaters. It'll repeat the signal from our device to our lock. And that will give you the range there. We call that a hop. So anytime we need to go from one device to another device, so from our panel to this device, we call it a hop, and it hops. You can have a maximum of 4 hops on your system. A couple things to keep in mind: anything that is battery powered, like door locks or thermostats, anything that's battery powered will not hop. So it ends right there. So thermostats will hop only if they are powered through the AC unit. If you actually have more wires run from the AC unit to this device, they will repeat, but in most cases they don't. So just a couple of ideas out there that you want to keep in mind when using Z-Wave is you want to keep an eye on absorption. Anything that can absorb signals, walls, stone, brick, anything that can absorb will absorb. Then we have jamming. Anything that makes noise will cause jamming issues. Two of the biggest ones out there are cordless telephones and baby monitors. And those are the old 90s versions of them because they were originally on the 900 megahertz frequency. Nowadays, you really don't run into the same issue as you did in the past, but the older ones do give you issues. And then reflection. Anything that can bounce signals back will bounce signals back. Mirrors, glassy surfaces, metal, different things like that. So the best way to do it is actually set up your house, look up for interference things, and then plan on putting more Z-Wave device in that you need. So this is my standard house. This is what I actually want. And then I can add some Z-Wave devices in there to get that range I need just in case. Once I have that all mapped out and ready to go, what I'll do is I will take all of my Z-Wave devices and I'll program them directly into the panel. You don't need to all take them all to one room and program them all in one room. What you can do is actually take our panels off the wall, put it on battery backup, and program each device directly from our panel with it in your hand. Once you've done that, you're going to go put your panel back on the wall. Then you're going to do what's called a network rediscovery. That network rediscovery will allow you to rediscover all of your devices and find the best way to communicate. From this, with this network rediscovery, our panel will then know that it can't communicate directly with that outlet. It needs to go through that switch to go to that outlet. And that's the best way it knows how to communicate. A few things here. A lot of our stuff is held in alarm.com side of things. So like rules and things like that can be done automatically through alarm.com. With this little area here, this is where I like to do a little bit of a salesy pitch. I'm sorry, I know I'm a tech guy, but I like to do a sales pitch here because this is probably one of the ways to increase your business the most. Z-Wave is a huge market that a lot of people don't know about or don't use. So one thing is home security systems are great. People love them, people buy them. It is a very small percentage of homes out there that have them, which is about 20% from the market studies. And within that same market study, you can see that 80% of people want home automation. The craziest part about that is that when they asked why they wanted home automation, it was because they wanted to be able to control things in their home, lights, different things like that. The reason they didn't, though, was because they thought it was tens of thousands of dollars. Z-Wave is definitely not in the tens of thousands of dollars range. It's definitely in the lower thousands. And sometimes you can get it for even cheaper than that. So I definitely think it's a huge market that we need to look into. I know a lot of companies out there that are switching from saying their home security businesses to being home automation with security as their motto to increase sales and give their customer options. With that being said as well, there is a big difference between home automation and home control. And people give me grief for this all the time, but I believe home automation is when your host does something that you don't want to do on yourself. So the easiest way one of that is I have two teenage boys at my house, and they're 17 and 18 now, and they both don't know how to turn lights off in the middle of the night. So they go to the restroom, they don't know how to turn the lights off, so they have hallway lights on all night until I see them and I turn them off. So what I've done instead is I put a little door contact on their bedroom doors. So when their bedroom doors open, the hall light kicks on and stays on for about 5 minutes. This allows them to run to the bathroom, run to the kitchen, grab something, and then it'll just turn off on them. Same thing with the bathroom lights. I do the same thing. This saves my electricity bill. It also makes sure that the lights turn off automatically. So there's a lot of benefits in automatic devices doing things for customers. And whenever they see that, they understand in the back of their head that they know that their alarm panels or their home automation panels doing that for them. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with that on the back side of things, giving you that ability to automate someone's home and giving you that decreased attrition rate, to gauge that ability. And the big thing is most people don't want home control. They want home automation, where things will automatically happen for them and they don't have to do anything involved with that. So that's a cool option there. So that's just my little sales pitch in a bundle. Sorry about that. So just a couple of things here with our product. Our product is a fairly good product. With fairly good products, there's always going to be an issue with returns. If you have something that breaks, we absolutely want to make sure you get the product up and running and get it fixed. So what we do is we talk about our returns to make it easier on you. So here's the biggest deal. When you have an issue and you're thinking it's going to have to be returned, definitely call our tech support. Do a troubleshooting step with our customer, with us, and we'll give you a trouble ticket number or tech ticket number. You then take that tech ticket number to whoever you bought it through. And with that being said, ADI, give it to them. And then they can contact our returns agency and get that process started. We just want to make sure you have a tech ticket number when doing that process, because that is a huge part of making sure that we're getting actual returns with broken products, because we had a big issue back in the day where we had a lot of problems with product not being broken or not testing thoroughly. So we do want to make sure you call our tech support, get a tech ticket number to make sure that product's actually broken. And then some resources for you. Dealer 2gig.com/dealer is a huge bonus for you guys out in the field. What this allows you to do is actually download our user manual for this panel. So if you go to dealer.2gig.com/dealers, you can go log in and download the field guide. This field guide is specifically designed for you guys out in the field. It has troubleshooting steps, it has wiring diagrams, it has everything you need to know in an easy to digest manual. The reason we built that is because we were having issues with us as technicians out in the field using our own manual. We wanted to make one easier and better designed so that you have one that you can have on hand and know what you're looking at. So this is the field guide on our 2GIG website, designed and built by our training team specifically for you guys. Next is, please go to our website, norteksecuritycontrol.com/dealer-update-form. This is where you can register your company as a company that sells our product. This is huge because if you are selling our product or supporting our product, a lot of customers call us and we don't tell anybody who to buy from or where to buy it, but we do say, here's the companies that are on our website supporting our product in your area. You can give them a call. So if you're not on there, you're kind of losing a little free resource of marketing here. So please make sure you sign up to nortekcontrol.com/dealer-update-form. We also have a certification program that we offer. Right now, that certification program is closed because of the coronavirus. We are delaying that until this pandemic is a little bit further in the past for us to get out back on the field and do certification classes. With that being said, we also have webinars every week. So if you want to do another webinar with us, we do all of our products. We do a lot more of in-depth products overview and programming and different things like that. You can go to our learnlinear.com or learn2gig.com to learn more about that. Next is a map for your reps. Us trainers aren't really out there traveling very much because this is kind of a closed off state option here. So with that being said, our sales reps are out there in your areas. Most of them are willing to talk. I don't know if they're quite ready to travel outside their state yet, but please make sure you write down their names and phone numbers or their email address. I recommend to take a picture of this so you have it on hand. I'm going to stay here for just a little bit to make sure everybody gets it. John Borges is pretty awesome. I've done a lot of tradings with him. Perfect. If we need to go back to it, we can go back to it in just a little bit. I'll talk about that in just a minute. Next is our tech support phone number, our backend providers phone numbers as well with the numbers of operation. Please make sure you get this. The slides won't be available, but a video will later on with all this information in it. So this is the end of my presentation. Before we move on though, We do have somebody else going to do some other information about the system group. Let me grab.
Yes. Hi, Jerome. It's Andrea Powers. How are you?
Andrea Powers, perfectly, out of Louisville, correct?
Yes, exactly. Out of Louisville. So I'm going to grab your screen real quick just so that I can share my slide.
Let me stop
You
sharing.
can grab it back.
Perfect. I stopped sharing. I think you got it. Perfect.
Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Yes?
We can.
Great. Okay. So thanks, Jerome, for your presentation today, and wanted to let everyone know that's on the call. If you're interested in learning more about the 2GIG products presented today or any other ADI low voltage product, give our system design team a call. Phone number is up here. This design team has been quoting and providing design services for over 28 years, so they have a lot of experience to share with you on this product line and all ADI product lines. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone had that number in case they had any further questions. Also, if you prefer to just send an email, we're happy to respond to you. It's ADISYS1@adiglobal.com, and we are here Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. So we just want to thank you again for joining us today, and I'm going to turn this back over to Mike and Jerome for some question and answers. So thanks, guys.
Thank you, Andrea. So if you all have any questions, please put them into the Q&A box. And Jerome, I'll ask you to clear any questions that might be in the chat box while we're waiting for some things to queue up for Q&A.
Perfect. I think I have one currently in there. I will look at the chat and grab the chat. I'm going to take the screen over again.
Yep.
Perfect. Let me make sure. I think this is my screen. I don't know what's going on here. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. The first question we have, is this going to be recorded or to be reviewed? The answer is absolutely. It'll be up on YouTube. There's an answer already there for you. The next one is, they were. It's an option. Back in the day that we did have a radio, the radios are still functional, so we do still support their back-end option for uplink. The POTS module is definitely still available for the older products. We still have a limited supply of them. We are no longer making them. So the question I have is, does the POTS module still available for the original panel? The answer is yes, but we aren't making any more of them, so we won't be producing any more. So what's currently out there is out there. The next question is, does NORTEK own uplink? We do not. Another company bought them out. We still support the current units we have that are functioning with uplink, which is very few, but I don't think we're pushing for uplink anymore. Someone else asked if the Z-Wave will work without the back-end service provider. Absolutely will. You just lose the functionality of the app option. You don't have the option to control your Z-Wave devices on the smartphone. The next person asked question statement is, they have a thermostat on their house and it's running on the 2GIG platform. They replaced the batteries on the thermostat. The biggest thing you want to keep in mind is the way that the thermostat is powered up is the way it's going to see things. And the way you power the thermostat on main AC, which is like through the thermostat or the battery, will determine how that thermostat will respond. If you power it AC first, then it will respond like it has AC the entire time. If you put batteries in it first, then power, it will respond as if it is powered off of battery only, if that makes sense. It's powered with AC. Sorry if I said program. Another question I have is, do Honeywell keypads work? They do not. Honeywell keypads do not work. I don't. That's alarm.com side of things for this the back end side of things for Central Station. I don't touch on the Central Station side. Alarm.com or SecureNet is probably the two that you want to work with to find out which Central Station works best for you. The next one is the bell terminals on the external siren. Do the bell terminals trigger external sirens? The answer is yes and no. You can use electronics power supply to trigger any bell or siren you want. All we're doing is we're doing an input on that electronic power supply to our main bell output for our panel. Another one is, are our slides going to be available afterwards? As of right now, no. There's some liability issues with slide release, but there will be a video of this presentation online. I don't know if they are still repping other NORTEK AV equipment currently. Zach, it's the same question as somebody else before. The monitoring station selection, we don't really have control over that. We do 4x4 options for the standard backend providers for the central stations for cell, but you want to work with alarm.com to find the best central station out there for you. That you work with. You most likely the current central station you're working with will work with us as well. So William, there's a question on, if there's no good cell service in the house, can we use just internet? In most cases, I would say yes, but that's an alarm.com particular question because they are the ones that do that communication, that option for that. So if you want that communication, you can work directly with alarm.com to get that approved. Our panel doesn't have a problem with it, but you can work with alarm.com directly to get that up and running for you. Next is, will the Z-Wave functionality work without monitoring, without security monitoring? Yes, I answered that one. I answered that one as well. Monitoring, let me make sure, cell, weak, home, perfect. Chat to answer questions. I'm not 100% sure on how Zoom works for questions and answering. Can everybody hear me? Just want to make sure.
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I don't know if it is or not. You're just in the main chat. I'm looking through the main chat and also another question and answering box. I don't know if there's a specific way to get questions in the question and answer box.
You simply go to the Q&A box and you type the question in and you hit.
So if you have a question, go ahead and put into the Q&A box. If you look at the top of your screen or the bottom of your screen, there should be a Q&A box. Go ahead and click on that and then type your question in there. I'm majority of the time looking at both of them, so I'll try to answer both of them as possible. Another question is compatibility. Does the GC2e support GC2e devices? The answer is yes and no. The only ones that we do not support are like the secondary keypads. All the rest of the sensors are exactly the same. The only ones that don't work are keypads. Next is how many 345 repeaters required for a 4,000 square foot house. This is difficult because depending on the house design and how it's built, where you can place the keypad or how you place it will depend here. I normally say about 2. Our repeaters, though, are very particular and they don't do broadcast storms, so they won't repeat a repeater signal. So you want to make sure that you place the panel centrally located in the house, and you put one repeater on one side and the other repeater on the other to give you the maximum range for your repeaters. Someone has another question. I have a GC2e system installed. My customer wants to have 2 outdoor sirens. There are currently no external sirens now. The support told us that they could connect 2 piezo sirens, 820 ohm resistors in parallel. They tried and it failed. The terminal has 13.5 volts at all times. No one has a traditional manual or anything about this on the system. So the question is if you set off the alarm on that panel, does that voltage fluctuate at all? Because if it doesn't fluctuate, then we're having an issue with that panel. We'll have to call tech support and verify it's actually functioning correctly. Igor, if it is fluctuating, then it's doing what it needs to do, and we need to make sure we are actually getting the correct voltage out to where we need to. So we'll have to check the lines on that troubleshooting. So I do recommend calling our tech support again. And if they're not able to help, you can get a hold of your sales rep, and they'll get a hold of us in the training department, and we can work with you directly to figure out what's going on with that product. But it might be not enough amperage to power those sirens. We can then figure out how to get you a correct solution to get your siren up and running, which may be an external power supply for your sirens in particular. This PowerPoint isn't available online, but the booklet I talked about earlier at 2gig.com/dealer in the manual side of things is this. All the entire PowerPoint is covered in that book, and this video is recorded, so you can actually view this video later on if you want to watch it again. That's a good question. Someone asked us how many takeover modules can you have on the panel. You can have as many as you want, up to 8, because then you run out of zones on your panel. I keep forgetting to mark them as done. So you can have a maximum as you want. You will just have to have, you'll have no wireless sensors. You only have takeover modules. So 8. Our panel does not have a DSC receiver built into it. So you will have to have a receiver or a translator that will work for the DSC sensors. Sorry, I keep forgetting to read the question. Does 2GIG work with other wireless sensors like DSC? The answer is no, not by default. The Honeywell ones do, but if you want to use DSC, you'll have to use a translator, like an Alula translator if you want to. Next, I don't know if we have a coupon. I'm not involved in any coupon side of things. There might be. I would definitely check to see if there is somewhere else. But I don't know. So, Zach, with that question, the door lock's not working with your GC3 panel or GC2. Either one's pretty much the same. Normally, if you're running out of batteries in 10 days, which I consider 2 weeks, that's telling you that you have a security issue command send, which means that that actual lock isn't sending the commands to the GC3 panel. So that you want to do is you go back on site, remove the device, bring the panel within 2 feet of it, learn it back in, and leave the panel there for 5 minutes. Let it do its full process of learning in, and then restart. And then you'll be good to go. Yeah, I agree, but you want to make sure it's within about a foot of the panel when you first program it in, so that it will fully get all the information. Even if it's 4 feet apart, there's times where I've seen locks just drop off and kill the battery. And if that is still going on, I'll definitely call our tech support, and they'll create a case number, and then we can push that all over to engineering, and engineering will then do a test with that lock to see if there's anything in particular going on.